Mention the name Gale Sayers and you evoke memories of the greatest open field runner football has ever seen. But he was also a humanitarian who donated his time and talents to help his fellow human and served as a college sports administrator. Hi, I'm Michael D. Lee, and my late broadcast partner Larry Kotler and I interviewed Gale during the Saturday Sportsline program on WHO Radio in Des Moines on July 2, 1983. Our interview touched on several topics, including Gale's memories of Brian Piccolo, Dick Butkus, and George Halas. He also expressed strong opinions about the attitudes of many pro football players who were playing during the early 80s. So here's an interview with Gale Sayers, including a few extra comments during the commercial break on WHO's Saturday Sportsline Memories.
1:18 in the afternoon on WHO Saturday Sportsline. It's a great privilege now to have Gale Sayers on with us. Gale, the former great running back with the Chicago Bears, before that the Kansas Jayhawks, for a while the athletic director at Southern Illinois, and now he's in Chicago. And our number is here, 282-5111 in the city. Our toll-free Watts line, 1-800-532-1111. Our long-distance line is area code 515-282-5120. Gale, I can still remember vividly watching the tube and having Ray Scott describe your runs up the field. It was simply electric to watch you play. Now football's in the past. I'd like to know what you're doing now.
Well, I have a business called Sayers & Sayers Enterprises, and that's an umbrella for several things that I'm doing. I have an energy management company that we do energy audits on public housing authorities and industrial sites, and I'm doing some marketing work. I market bee pollen and some gasoline products, and I'm still doing my product endorsements and things like that, so I'm keeping busy.
Marketing bee pollen, that's rather interesting considering the government has warehouses and warehouses of honey. Is there a market for bee pollen somewhere?
Well, bee pollen is probably the only perfect food that you can eat, and there's a lot of athletes using bee pollen. The Chicago Bears are on bee pollen. The Dallas Cowboys on bee pollen. It's a food that will give you increased energy. It helps your recovery time and things like that. And this is what pro teams are looking for.
Gale Sayers with us on WHO Saturday Sportsline, 282-5111, locally, 800-532-1111. Our toll-free statewide Watts line, outside the state, 515-282-5120, and out-of-state calls must be paid for in advance. Gale, when I think about your play, I particularly enjoy watching the films of you running in the mud. How did you ever learn to run in those kind of conditions?
Well, running on a muddy field, I didn't enjoy it. I just, prepared to do this. It's something that when we was playing, we didn't have the synthetic turfs or astroturf, so you had to prepare to run on a muddy field or a wet field. So we wore little longer spikes in our shoes, but I didn't like it either. But you had to play on it, so I tried to adjust to it.
You talk about synthetic turf, and of course you went out with a knee injury. Would you have liked to play on synthetic turf, or do you think it's bad for the game and bad for your knees?
Well, no, I don't think it's bad for the game, more bad for injuries. You're going to get hurt because of the roughness of the game. But if I would have came up playing on it, I probably wouldn't have minded it at all. But I didn't play on artificial surfaces until 1968, and I played football since I was on sand like 8 years of age on grass and dirt. So when they first came into being, it's a difficult surface to run on. You run much quicker, you stop a little quicker, and it's a little harder. And so I really didn't care for it. But if I would have came up like some of the players are today, they're playing on it in grade school. They like it. I didn't care for it because I didn't play on it early in my career.
You were in athletic administration for a while at Southern Illinois, heading up the athletic department there. Now you're in Chicago with your own business. Tell us a little bit about the experiences at Southern Illinois, what it was like getting into athletic administration, and why you decided to break away and form your own company.
Well, after I retired from the Bears back in 1971, I wanted to stay in athletics, but I didn't want to be a coach. And so I decided to go the athletic administration route, and maybe figuring one day I may be a general manager of a pro team, so I needed some really experience at the college level. So I went back to Kansas as assistant AD for 4 years, and in 1976 I decided I wanted to run my own program and get the job at Southern Illinois University, and I was there for 5 years. But it was a very, very fine experience. I enjoyed it very, very much. I enjoyed talking to the athletes. I enjoyed running my own program, and Many times, athletes, they think they're going to play professional sports, and it's not going to happen. A very small percentage ever play professional sports. So it gave me an opportunity for someone who made it in professional sports to come back and talk to some young people and try to steer them right, try to make sure that they get their degrees and things like that, because a pro career, even if you do make it, it's only a short-term proposition.
Well, I take it from your answer that there wasn't any one single thing that made you decide to go to Chicago from Southern Illinois. Did you just decide on a career change, or was there something at Southern Illinois that you didn't like?
Well, not really. I just decided that I spent about 10 years in athletic administration, and I felt that I had other talents that I could use, and I was kind of stagnant at Southern Illinois. I enjoyed it very much. We had a good program, but I decided that I needed a change in my life, so I decided to get out of it.
Gale Sayers is with us, one of the greatest running backs in not only NFL history, but college football history as well. 2825111 if you're calling from Des Moines or one of our surrounding suburbs. 800-532-1111. Elsewhere around the state, that number is free of charge to you. And outside the state, 515-282-5120. And out-of-state calls must be paid for in advance. Gale, one of my favorite books has always been I Am Third. It was the story of you and your relationship with Brian Piccolo, and of course it was a very emotional thing for you. Kind of talk about Brian Piccolo and your experience with him.
Well, Brian, he and I was drafted the same year. He at Wake Forest, he led the nation in rushing and led the nation in scoring, but he didn't get drafted. I think many pro scouts felt that he was too slow to play professional football, but the Bears took a chance on him and drafted him, signed him as a free agent. And his first year he was redshirted, and after that he came back and did a real fine job for us. He was my backup until I got injured, and he came in and started for me. But Brian was an unusual young man. If he could walk into a room of 250 people in 10 minutes, everybody would know him, not because he was boisterous, but because that he had that type of personality that people gravitated to. Good football player, kind of football player that you couldn't cut, because he never made mistakes. He was always razor sharp as far as knowing his assignments and things like that. And he did a good job for the Bears. And our relationship was one that grew out of this rooming together, and it became a very, very close relationship. And as far as the movie is concerned, it's a very, very true movie. That was about just the way it happened.
Gale, I've talked to baseball players who have said now, and I'm talking about guys who are out of the game, who say that relationships between the athletes right now isn't the same as it used to be because of the money situation. Everybody's out for number one, so to speak. Do you think that's true anymore?
I really do. There are certain players that are there for the performance, for pride in performance, as I like to call it. But for the most part, players, the money has really changed the whole game, and no one's there to better themselves as an athlete. Most of them there to get as much money as they can and try to retire and never work again. It's not going to happen that way, but they think it's going to happen that way. But the money is so big today that you don't have, I want to go to this league because they got the best players, and I want to play against the best in order to better myself as an athlete. Athletes today, if little sister of the poor offer them enough money, they're signing with them. The money is so great today that it has changed the thinking of all athletes.
There's no resentment on your part of athletes getting more money than you did when you were at Chicago, is there?
No, of course not. I don't blame the athletes. I blame the owners, because if the owners are willing to give somebody, $4 or $5 million to play, hey, more power to the athlete. Go ahead and do it. But I still feel that when I was coming up, I got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs of the old league and in the Bears of the new league of the NFL, and the Kansas City Chiefs offered me more money. But I wanted to better myself as an athlete, and I felt the only way to better myself is to play against the best. And the best at that time was in the NFL. And so this is why I chose the NFL. But I think players today, they don't care about that aspect of it anymore. They see money, they see dollar signs, and sometimes the money is not that great, the difference between the two leagues, but they see that who's going to give me the most money, I'm going to take it. But the thing that I don't like about it is that an athlete's career is only 4 or 5 years, especially in football, and it's probably about that in baseball, basketball, and other sports. When you just go for the money, well, then I think your whole your attitude has changed, and this is not preparing you to do anything after professional athletics. And it's going to come one day. You're going to have to get out there and go 9 to 5 with somebody. And athletes, they don't care about that. They're not preparing themselves to quit. As I prepare myself to play, I prepare myself to quit by doing other things. Today's athletes, they feel that they make enough money where they'll have to work again in their life. But they're wrong. They want to work one day for somebody.
There is an emphasis probably on money, more so than there was when you were playing football. But would you necessarily agree that because of the emphasis on money, the quality of play has diminished in pro football?
Well, I think in some instances it has, because I think some athletes, they do just enough to get paid on Tuesday. And there are not a lot of great football players out there. They got another league, now they're going to start up another league. You don't have that many football players out there. So when you have a fairly good football player out there who's making a lot of money, he knows that he's going to stay around if he just does just enough to get by. And I think sometimes some players, if they got a small injury, they won't play. Where I know when I was coming up, you played because you had a pride in doing your job well. I think in some athletes, it's not happening that way anymore.
And you think they're not hungry, is what it sounds like.
Well, yes, that is. They're not hungry enough because again, there's so much money out there. But then you have some other athletes that goes against that, like a Moses Malone. Whatever he gets, he deserves and more because he works for his money. But I've seen some athletes who's making a lot of money that are stealing money.
Okay, let's take a call right now for you, Gale, one of your admirers. Good afternoon. You're on the air with Gale Sayers.
Hi, Gale.
Hello.
Well, you have always been not more of an individual fan of mine when you were playing, although my Rams were my favorite team. Always losers. But I did want to say that I admired you and Foreman as individual players and runners.
Well, thank you very much.
And one other thing, I have to go along with you on this money project with the players. I think it's taken something out of football and basketball, too. Pro basketball, to me, isn't the same. But football, I've seen a lot of good runners. And even way back when the Rams were so good, and the front four, I just don't believe in one individual person getting all the money and the others setting back and not getting, because it takes them 11 players.
Right. No question about it.
Right. And when you get one, then, I don't know, it was the days, I think it started when Sanka was playing. From there on till now, it seems like that's when it started. And I think it has done something to football. I don't watch it near like I used to. And I dearly love the game. But, I don't know, it certainly made some pansies out of them. But I will say I've really, 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 truly loved your playing, your running.
Sir, man, thank you very much for the call on WHO Saturday Sports Line. It is 1:31 in the afternoon. We've got to take a break right now, and we'll remind you that our numbers are 282-5111 here in the city. Our toll-free Watts line, 1-800-532-1111. Our long-distance line, area code 515-282-5120. We've got Gale Sayers on the line right now. We'll be back with the second half of our conversation after this.
Can you turn, if you have another call, can you turn that call up? Because it's tough to hear her.
Yeah,
okay.
We had sometimes have
She
problems.
faded toward the end, too. She really
She was
dropped
sort of
down.
whispering.
Okay. Well, this is kind of interesting.
After I think we come back from this break, Gale, if we could talk a little bit about George Halas,
Okay.
Get people caught up out there on how he is. I don't know if many people even knew that he was having problems. And I doubt that very many others know that he's starting to recover now. He's incredible.
It really is. 88 years of age.
88 years old.
He's a fighter.
How was your relationship with Dick Butkus?
Very good.
I want to talk about him in a little
Okay.
bit, too. And
Do you follow the Bears much anymore, Gale?
Well, being in Chicago, you got to follow the Bears because that's during the football season. That's all you talk about. And I do follow.
What do you think of McMahon right now?
Well, I think he's going to be a fine quarterback, but the only problem is that he cannot throw the ball laying on his back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they need some linemen, and they got a big lineman out of Pittsburgh, Jimbo Covert, and he should help them. But they're still probably 4 or 5 players away from having a real contender.
Well, I bet Walter Payton love to see them grab a big lineman.
Oh yeah, Walter. He's done a fine job over the years.
Boy, well, you know, you always ran away from the tacklers.
Well,
Best way to do it.
that's the best way to do it. That's right.
Walter's not like that.
No, Walter's not. He'll challenge you.
Yeah, he's different style runner, but he's good.
Who do you think's the best runner? You know, well, I'll probably ask you this later, but who do you think the best runner, present company included or accepted, whichever?
Well, you know, if you're talking about the president.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
I'll start with one. Then you.
And Fred's Plumbing and Electric in Storage.
Offers subject to credit approval. Back on WHO Saturday Sportsline, we're visiting with former great NFL running back and college football running back Gale Sayers from the University of Kansas, also the Chicago Bears. 515-282-5120 is our out-of-state number. You must pay for those calls in advance if you're calling from the Des Moines area, 282-5111. And our toll-free statewide watch line is 800-532-1111. Talking about the Bears a little bit in your career with them, what was your relationship with Dick Butkus? Because I'll tell you, there is no more violent tackler in the game that I ever saw than Dick Butkus.
Well, Dick, we came up the same year. We were both #1 draft choices, and he really inspired me on offense because when he was out there, he was 100% every play. He was just a tremendous football player, and people looked up to him. And I know I've said this many times, he has hit me as hard in practice, in training camp, as anybody hit me on a Sunday, because that's the way he came and played the game. He was a great practice player, and it probably made me a better football player by practicing against him. And so I got tremendous respect for Dick. And when you talk about defensive players, linebackers, the #1 player is Dick Butkus, because he's the cornerstone of all defensive linebackers.
Well, he's coming off a few injuries, and I don't know if the suit against the Bears has ever been resolved yet. He had some complaints about the way the team doctors left him after he retired. Have you been able to get yourself caught up on that?
Well, no, the suit has been, settled. And, Dick, when he was in school, high school, he had bad knees. He came into pro ball with bad knees, and but he was the type of individual that, he didn't want to get an operation until he had to, and finally he had to. But he played very, very well for about 7 years, and I got tremendous respect for him.
Let's talk about George Halas for a moment. Some people out there in WHO land might not know that he's been ill for a while, but now he is starting to recover. I saw a newspaper report you dropped in on him. How's George getting along?
Well, Coach Halas, he was very sick for about 3.5 months. He was in the hospital for 3.5 months, and really was very, very concerned about him. But, he's unlike anyone I've ever known before. He's very courageous and, very strong individual. And he's out of the hospital now. He's back at home, and he's doing very, very well. Hopefully he'll be back in the office in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Gale, recently college football coaches and administrators screamed bloody murder when Herschel Walker left to go to the USFL 1 year before completing his college eligibility. In basketball, you have the hardship draft. In baseball, you can go really just about any time. Do you think that do you see something in the near future where athletes will finally say, as sophomores, and say, hey, I'm good enough for the NFL, I'll challenge, take them to court, and try to leave during college?
Well, they probably will. I hope it doesn't happen, because only a very, very small percentage of athletes, especially in football, are ready for the NFL. Only a very, very small percentage. Herschel Walker, he was one. If the money was right, they see what he got. Well, I don't blame him for leaving college to take the money. But athletic departments, the #1 sport in most athletic departments is the football program, and the revenues derived from the football program help support every other program in college athletics. And sometimes you get 13, 14, 15 sports, and you build your season ticket sales and enthusiasm around one player. And when a player like Herschel Walker left Georgia, their ticket sales probably went down 10,000 seats. And you can't afford to lose that kind of money at a college athletic program. Now they say that colleges are proving grounds or farm system for pros. I really don't believe it. You don't go to college to play football. You go to college to get an education. And I think this is why I like the NFL system so much that they can't draft you until your college graduation, because at least you got 4 years in college. Whether you graduate or not, you got 4 years to try to learn and try to pick up a degree, where in baseball and in basketball, they pick these kids out of high school and out of their first couple of years in college, which I think is very, very wrong.
Well, I've got to disagree with you slightly, Gale. I figure that Herschel Walker has enough money that he can head back to school anytime he wants to and get that criminology degree.
Well, hey, I agree with you on that part, but he is one out of 3 million that could do that. Hey, as good as I was, I couldn't do it. I wasn't prepared. And the thing about it, forget the on the field aspect. The off the field is where these kids will get hurt, because many of these kids come from small communities. They get drafted they go to a New York, to a L.A., to a Chicago, and there are so many rip-off artists in the city. So I don't worry about Herschel Walker on the field. Off the field that I'm concerned about many players, because some of them are not ready for a big city.
Gale, as a person who's been involved in college athletics as an administrator, do you like Proposition 48, whereby athletes have to maintain higher academic standards?
Oh, no question about it. I think it's great that they're finally trying to put some meat into some legislation that athletes should be just like other students. They should maintain the grade average, because again, you don't go to school to play football. Football got you there, or basketball got you there. It's a stepping stone, but you hopefully in 4 years you will have a degree that you can do something after your playing days over, because as I said earlier, it's only a 3, 4, 5, 6 year proposition, then it's over. At 27 years of age, I was looking for another job because I was through playing. I couldn't play anymore. And then I made it 7 years. Some people don't make it that long. What do you fall back on? So I think it's great that the NCAA they're trying to do some things to improve the academics of athletes.
Gale, during the season, I saw a few public service announcements whereby you were urging people to, well, I guess it was in Chicago, actually, on WGN that I saw the announcements during the season, but it was some sort of drive to help people who have cancer or help find a cure for cancer, of course, based on your relationship with Brian Piccolo. Where do you think cancer research is right now? I mean, have you been able to look inside and get a good idea of where it stands? I mean, how much more of a chance would Brian Piccolo have had he had the cancer today instead of when he had it?
Oh, his chances are probably 50% improved, but I think that he had the kind of cancer that it was, incurable. But they are doing better. I have some disagreements with some of the things they're doing, but for the most part, they're finding many cures for many cancers, and some they're not finding the cures fast enough. But I'm all for anything that I can do to help, to speed up the cures for all cancers.
Gale Sayers with us for another 3 or 4 minutes. 282-5111 locally, 800-532-1111. Our toll-free statewide watch line. Outside the state, 515-282-5120, and out-of-state calls must be paid for in advance. Gale, you think the USFL can survive? And also there's a new football league that's supposed to be coming into play.
Well, personal opinion again, no, I don't think they will survive. I think that it's the wrong season, number one. And I don't think people, and it's been proven here in Chicago, they average about 17,000 people a game. I don't think people will pay $12, $14 to see has-been NFL players and people who didn't make the college draft. It just, that's the inferior brand of football. Yes, you got some couple players like Herschel Walker and a couple others in the league that jumped, for the new league for the money. And there are so many things happening during the summer. Say, take Chicago, when they start off in March, you got the NBA basketball, you got the Paul NCAA basketball, then you got the Blackhawks, who's in the playoffs this year, you got the indoor soccer team, and then you got 2 baseball teams coming up. Then you got the avid golfers who want to get out after a long winter, and the tennis players. And so there's so many things going on during the summer that I think it's just the wrong type of the season to play football. And I think it's being shown all over the country that you getting 20,000 people in stadiums that seats 80,000 people.
Gale, we only have a couple of minutes here. The Bears last season, your old team, were one of the most militant teams during the NFL strike. What was your reaction to the strike itself and to your old team as you saw their position on the strike?
Well, my reaction, to the strike, that it didn't prove anything. It wasn't a players' strike. I think it was the Ed Garvey strike, and it lasted for 57 days, and they got nothing for it. They got severance pay of $60,000. You take a Walter, they missed 8 ball games. You take a Walter Payton, who's making $400,000 a year, he lost $200,000 for nothing. And many players, there was 135 house foreclosures during the strike. There was 4 bankruptcies during the strike. So the players didn't win out in the strike. A lot of people lost money. The owners, they got the money. They got real good staying power. The players don't have any. And I'm not saying the players, yes, they should get more salaries if they can and get other benefits, but don't kill the game. And what they tried to do, they tried to kill the game. Ed Garvey tried to kill the game, and it didn't work.
Gale, we only have about a minute to go. Very quickly, it's hard to analyze a team quickly, but the Bears picked up Jimbo Covert, and I know that Walter Payton and Jim McMahon had to breathe a deep sigh of relief to see a big man up front blocking for him.
Well, I think that the Bears they're probably 3 or 4 players away from a real contending team, but Jimbo Covert, the big tackle, he should help them very much. They picked up Willie Gault, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. He's an excellent football player. So if Walter Payton can stay healthy, and Jim McMahon, I'm very, very impressed with him, they will be a contender, and they may win the Central Division. But as far as going on to doing well in the playoffs, they're probably 4 or 5 players away.
Gale Sayers is a member of both the Pro and College Football Halls of Fame. He died in September 2020 due to complications from Alzheimer's and dementia. For Saturday Sportsline Memories, I'm Michael D. Lee.